5 days.
Yep.
4 nights.
Yep.
Wow, that was a weekend, wasn't it?
It was a fun weekend that we had together.
It was a little chilly for swimming, though.
Yeah, it's March in Wisconsin. You don't outdoor swim for several more months here.
Yeah, but that lake looked really good in Lake Geneva.
Yes, Lake Geneva is an amazing place.
But
Beautiful.
we're going to talk about an amazing gaming getaway that you can have right here in Wisconsin that we just did. Coming up next on Board Games and Coffee. Welcome to WiscoDice. Hey, yo, folks, I am your host, the Conesy with the most, and I am joined today by...
Hey, I'm Suzanne.
And on today's episode of Board Games and Coffee, we're going to talk about our little gaming getaway that we just had in Lake Geneva.
Yes, that was a lot of fun, but before we do that, I want you guys to all smash those like buttons and also subscribe if you haven't already, because you know this is going to be an amazing episode of Board Games and Coffee.
Do it now. Let us know while you're down there in the comments what you're drinking while we're drinking some amazing beverages ourselves.
What have you got there, Conesy?
I've got a Reba from that Just Coffee place. I can't never seem to remember.
Cooperative.
Well, you do all the
Madison.
coffee. You do all the coffee ordering. Yeah, but you can order from there online as well. Even though they don't sponsor the show, we love their coffee. At least I do. What do you got?
Too. I am just usually cut off and encouraged not to drink as much coffee.
You do all of that encouraging. Nobody else in this house does. Don't get me in trouble here with our listeners.
My coworkers may also. I am drinking some Tea Fox's Cunning Green Tea from Druid's Garden Tea Company, which is online, which I found them at Gen Con.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And
lovely teas they have.
Support our beverages just like we do, so they can keep making beverages and sending them to us so we can drink them.
And then we don't have to search for new companies. No.
All right.
Anyway, let's get to what you're really here for. So
yeah, we're gonna talk about gaming stuff, right? Kinda.
It's gaming. So we do go to a lot of conventions.
A few.
Basically, our vacations for the last several years have been conventions.
Revolved around conventions.
And this one's no different, except this one had maybe for me, had a little bit less of the convention-ness.
Yeah, a little bit less.
So, where were you, Conesy?
Yeah, great question. So, I was just at Lake Geneva for Gary Con. So,
and what is Gary Con?
Shirt and stuff.
It's not a Comic-Con convention.
No, it's not a Comic-Con. It's primarily it's a role-playing convention in the
for people named Gary.
No, in the birthplace of the game Dungeons and Dragons, which the Gary part of that is Gary Gygax, one of the creators of Dungeons and Dragons. So this convention's kind of his namesake convention. It's run at the same facility that not the original very first Gen Cons were run at, but very shortly after it had moved over to this facility. It's been named different. It's the Grand Geneva.
It's the Grand Geneva Resort right now.
Grand Geneva Resort is what it's called right now. One of the primary people that helps organize the convention is his son, Luke Gygax. And this year was particularly special because on top of having the traditional Gary Gygax memorial kind of talk that Luke does, there was also a special memorial for Ernie Gygax. Ernie is one of Gary's other sons that just passed away right before the convention. So there was a lot of, I think, some big feelings from a lot of longtime con attendees. But this was my first opportunity ever to attend a Gary Con.
Right. So you kind of knew what you were getting into.
Kinda. I mean,
it's a convention. It's centered on role-playing games.
Yep. And I had been to this facility before, and one thing to note about the Grand Geneva is it is a winding maze of a facility for the main building part of it. And so, like, the vendor hall is on one opposite end of the building. That is a small hike to get to, away from most of the other major gaming activities, including all the stuff that I was doing working for Gooey Cube as a dungeon master.
I mean, I've been to Grand Geneva a couple times, and I will say, like that and some other resorts in Lake Geneva area, If the weather's nice and you can walk outside, do that over finding the maze.
It's certainly shorter to walk outside to get from like where I was at and where like the main registration desk was to the vendor space.
Yeah, so I mean, but March in Wisconsin, it's usually.
It wasn't bad. It was actually weather was really good
and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think it's nice. I guess it's all relative, right? So
we're doing this a weekend after, and it's rainy and kind of yucky out this weekend. It's a little bit warm. Yeah, it's warm, but it's still kind of chilly and wet and yucky, which is traditional Adepticon weather for Adepticon happening right now.
Right. So the other thing I will say about the resorts that I've only been to a small handful of resorts in Lake Geneva. They all remind me of like the resorts that you see like in those 80s movies and stuff.
Those
like
80s, 70s movies.
Where people are going away like Dirty Dancing.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
It very much
a little bit larger, but yeah.
Yeah, but it was just very much kind of surreal. So there's like some charm to it that way.
There is. It's definitely like Lake Geneva is really is a tourist town. And we'll talk about some of the touristy things that we did around the town. I think are very gaming adjacent in a bit when we get done talking about GaryCon. But yeah, the Grand Geneva is a sprawling facility.
Town.
Parking was a bit of a challenge and concern, although I will say like they did a great job of like shuttles and things like that. So if you were just going as a player or you wanted to maybe do some shopping at the vendor hall or something like that, where you weren't so worried about like, hey, I need to be close because I have a bunch of stuff I have to carry in or something like that, then it was no big deal because they shut
like the parking
like all
areas?
the parking lots because they were parking people pretty far away.
So why didn't you just take things to your room?
That's another good thing. So, good question. So, with GaryCon, one, it sells out every year. So, if you're going to go, or you think you're going to go, it is better to buy your badge early than late. Also, good to know that the badges for GaryCon are sold in different tiers. So, there's like the silver tier, which is basically the general masses tier, and then I think there's a gold tier and maybe a platinum tier or something else above it.
I like it silver, so you still feel like you medaled
of course
in the convention, and it wasn't just last place medaling.
Exactly. With the different tiers, you get access to the room bar, the hotel block sooner. There's also some other things like if you're one of the first 100 people that GM's events and submits them ahead of time, you get access to the room block the next year early and stuff like that, which means you'll get access to having an opportunity to book at the Grand Geneva. Since I worked for GUI Cube, I took the badge that they acquired for me because I worked full time and I qualified for a free badge as part of staffing for them. So I had just a basic silver badge with the extra swag bag, which the swag bag we'll talk about in a second. It is phenomenal.
Oh my gosh.
It meant that I got access to the GM parking, which was pretty much kind of right across from the spa parking, basically right across from the vendor hall.
The spa parking, so you normally can't even park in the spa parking.
Yeah, normally.
And it's like rock star parking when other stuff is filled.
Pretty much, yeah. Now, I will say the GM parking, there's like 75 spots or something like that, so it did fill up by like people that would show up by like 10 or 11 o'clock. They couldn't get parked there. It was like for GMs
that weren't staying at the Grand Geneva.
Exactly.
So, I mean...
I don't know if they made a distinction when they were giving out the parking badge for that, but
if you were staying
at the Grand Geneva, you got premium parking as well for that, so there was no reason for you to then want to park in the GM parking. So really, it was more for people that are traveling in. So yeah, I was getting the convention at like 8 o'clock in the morning every morning to make sure that I got a spot in the GM parking because I had quite a bit of gear. I mean, I had one of those.
So your rolling cart that was like a milk crate. It was a large milk crate on wheels.
Yeah, a large milk crate, but it also works as a kind of a dolly or whatever. And then I had my large Lazy Susan that I use when I'm DMing games and I'm using terrain. And then I had another one of those like foam pack box things, army transport things full of figures for all the miniatures that I was taking with. So yeah, there there was a bit of a haul of stuff that I was taking in. I know I only ran games on Thursday and Friday, so fortunately that wasn't by Friday.
Working.
Yeah, you worked.
I was not.
Running games at GaryCon for me, like as a DM behind the chain, I've ran games at other conventions now. That was no big deal. Like biggest things, biggest piece of advice for anyone considering running a game, whether it's a board game, a RPG, or a miniature game, or whatever else, is hydrate, and just make sure, like every chance you get, drink water. And I think that's a good convention advice piece, just period. But it's more important, especially when you're running a game like an RPG, like Dungeons and Dragons, because you're doing a lot more talking than say like when you do a board game or whatever. Yeah, you can really wear on your voice over a couple of days.
And like for myself, I'm not DM'd a game, but I have at different conventions run board games and taught them. And so the whole time I'm standing and walking around and talking, which is very similar to how you DM. Mm-hmm. And I forget to listen to my body to see, hey, I might be thirsty. I might be hungry.
It's really easy.
It's just easy. You just keep going.
It's so easy to get focused on, like, especially when you're like running games versus, but even as you're playing,
between.
But when you're running games, certainly, when you're running a game and you're focused on making sure everybody else at the table is having a good time and they're all enjoying it and into it, and you're kind of that, especially as a GM, you're in an RPG, you're that focus of everybody's attention. There is so few opportunities, and I feel guilty sometimes grabbing the water bottle and taking a drink during a game, but it's so essential to make sure that you're hydrated. I know, I don't think they do either, but like,
hey, they're here for my 4 hour. In the middle of the game.
They're here for my 4-hour game, and I'm taking 30 seconds of time to make sure I can recoup my voice or be able to talk for the next one. So
all right, so you ran a bunch of games. You were there till like midnight and stuff, and I did not have a tick. I did not have a badge. For some of you probably remember this, we mentioned it probably in an earlier video, is that I just last year started my first RPG, which is a GUI Cube RPG.
It's a Dungeons and Dragons game.
It's a Dungeons and Dragons game, and I'm enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would. So.
Which has turned into you playing in several one-shots now. Yeah,
so next year I will might, if I can swing it with work, head over there to experience this and everything. But so the games went late for you.
Games went late. Gaming started early. Gaming ended late. And then I wasn't staying at the Grand Geneva, as we kind of indicated. I was actually at the Abbey Resort, which was about 20 or 25 miles away. Now, that was partially by choice because I'm familiar with the Abbey Resort a bit, so I knew kind of the layout and where it was. But there were a lot of hotels that were much closer, more traditional, like regular hotels.
Was nice. It was about a 20 to 30-minute drive.
So there wasn't necessarily you had to be that far away. I want to make sure that's clear. And certainly even with the silver badge, and I booked a little bit later than, into when the housing block was open for the silver badges, you could still get a hotel that was fairly close to the Grand Geneva. You didn't have to be that far away. So I do want to point that out.
Yeah, but I came down on Saturday, and you weren't doing any other more gaming. Why didn't you have other events that you were in?
No. Part of the challenge of having a silver badge is you need to basically be right there on when events go for sale for the silver badge holders to get anything, particularly on Saturday, that you really want to play. Now, I did get to play in some games on Thursday and Friday in between my downtime running games for GUI Cube. I actually got to play in a GUI Cube game that was scheduled before my game, just happened to be on an open spot at the table. But for Saturday, I was looking, I did not find anything I really wanted to play in. This was an opportunity, I thought, now that to have you come in and
I could come down. We had our daughter living at home to watch the dog for us, and I could take that weekend.
Yeah,
I mean,
so,
which is kind of why, it makes it hard to do a last minute vacation.
So we got to do the tourist thing, right? And
yeah.
because Lake Geneva is the home of, and birthplace of Dungeons and Dragons, there are a lot of historical sites, and because of the size of Lake Geneva, they actually have done a lot as a town to promote the fact that this is the birthplace of Dungeons and Dragons.
Without it being in your face. Like, this is a very touristy town.
It is.
That has these extra bits and pieces of D&D history throughout, which you are not in your face, but you can't miss. And I will say, we were there in March. The town doesn't really come alive with all the activities and everything being open until like end of May this
close
summer.
to Memorial Day,
Yeah, so it was very kind of nice and calm, and it was a little chilly. I mean, if it wasn't, we probably could have actually just parked our car in one spot and walked to most of these places.
Probably.
Which you would have been like, oh my gosh, not taking you on vacation again. You make me walk nonstop.
Oh, yeah, that is, once you're in Lake Geneva proper, and, because there is
So where did we go first?
The first spot we went to is right on the lake shore, and there's a Gary Gygax memorial plaque. There's a bunch of plaques for all these people that contributed.
It's one of those where you have the pavilion, and you can go, and when they were building it, you can purchase a plaque, donate a plaque in memory of someone or something.
Or if you were a bigger name, I think, in the town.
Yeah.
I don't know that Gary actually, or anybody paid for that plaque for Gary.
Well, but
maybe they
someone
did.
put the money down. It's one of those, you've all seen, hey, we're building this. Get your name immortalized.
But it is, it's pretty much right smack, right next to the fountain.
Which was unfortunately covered up because, again, March, you can't in Wisconsin.
But when we were able to go from there, we were able to go to walk out on the beach and get some great pictures of us right there on the beach. Which the beach is normally, I think, closed or ticketed or whatever.
To go on it?
Yeah, during the summer, I think.
Yeah, which I mean.
But this point of the year, you were allowed to walk out, and nobody was watching it, so no lifeguards or anything like that.
We were there for a total of 30 seconds.
Yeah, you have enough time to get the pictures, and then we walked from there. We walked up to the library.
Yes.
Because the library is also right on the lakeshore. And I'm going to say this is one of the most impressive libraries I've ever been in. And not just from it's got the standard rows of old books and that old book smell that every library pretty much
I think it's just book smell. I don't know that it's old book smell.
I think the books that have been sitting for a long time that haven't necessarily, they've collected a little dust and gotten a little bit older, get a little bit of a different smell than say a little bit, that musty smell almost.
I want to find a candle that is old book smell candle.
Or that old book smell, the old library smell. I mean, there's something good about it, but
it's not. The building is beautiful.
The building is beautiful,
and it doesn't feel old.
What
feels maintained.
floored me is these the whole side, the lakeshore side of the building is all these huge windows, and they have these little nooks with tables that you can just sit there and read or play a quiet game with someone
and they partition
all sorts of things. Yeah, they're partitioned, so you have a little bit of privacy in these little nooks. Quiet. As long as you're quiet, nobody's gonna bother you, and you just get to look out on the lakeshore and sit in the library the whole day. That looked to be amazing. That.
You're very excited, I think, to go and experience some other libraries that are like that. The one in Prairie Sac that looks out at the water. I really
like that. But then they also have you go up a little staircase, this flight of stairs, and then there's a bunch of fiction and
it's like fantasy, adult fantasy, and they have their book club, book selections.
Yeah, the book club, and then you eventually come around the wall, and there is the selection of books that inspired Gary Gygax.
Yep.
And it's all laid out very nicely, all these cool titles. And then there's also this really cool, I don't remember what they call it, but this cool awesome
it's
throne.
A throne.
I was gonna say throne.
It's a throne of reading, I believe.
Something like that, yeah. It was super cool. We got a bunch of pictures of it.
Yep.
I've got a chance to sit on the throne,
You
looked
did
at all
sit
the
on the
books.
throne.
I was like, oh man, I'm like, I've heard of that book and heard of that book when I was looking at Gary's, what inspired Gary. And I'm like, oh, I haven't read that one, or I haven't caught that one on audiobook or anything like that. Like, oh, I should make sure I check those out.
Yep, and they also, right when you walk in the library, have a nice display D&D books
Yes.
that you can check out. It's a mixture of some older to some newer.
Mostly
ones.
all 5e.
Yeah,
books,
but like
yeah.
I saw like the 2024 player handbook.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there's, you know, they've got a mixture of that, and it's a very nice library there.
Yeah, no, really nice library.
So, I mean, libraries in general I've never been in a bad library.
No, I've
but
never been in a bad one. Sometimes
books, and they're cheaper than bookstores.
Sometimes I find libraries are like they're kind of sometimes dark with the halls kind of tight with just rows of books and not as much like windows and things like that. So
I guess
having a
once you
library
got
with
some
so
newer
much
libraries,
light. No, I've been like even the Madison libraries are kind of like that. Like there might be a lot of windows, but they're like it's very.
We clearly been
Blah,
and anyway, moving on past our library experiences, we got in the car and drove around the corner basically to wait. First, in front of the library was a really cool thing.
Yeah, it was the dragon sculpture.
A metal dragon sculpture, and it had been allowed to weather, so it was like rusty looking.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's that the little shop right across the street from it too that did all the sculptures and stuff like that. Had like all sorts of cool sculptures in front of it that you could check out. Yeah,
so this sculpture that's in front of the library, as you're driving through Lake Geneva, you keep your eyes open or walking through, and you will see more of them, of various dragons sprinkled throughout.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There were some in front of our next stop that we didn't see until later on when we came around it a different way.
Oh, yeah. So
our
Lake
next
Geneva, was it the Lake Geneva Museum? Was that what it's called? Yeah.
There was a museum in Lake Geneva.
This place was impressive. Like.
Oh, yeah. It was an old, was it power utility building?
Yeah.
Like the offices, like, administrative offices type of thing. So.
Administrative, and then there was like the warehouse, like where they have the utility vehicles and maintenance bays and stuff like that. But it all been converted.
Yes.
Most of it is truly like there is a special room for tribute to Dungeons and Dragons and Gary Gygax. There is, and it's a cool room.
Some impressive stained glass in there too.
Yeah, impressive stained glass, some cool art. A really nice gaming table that's actually fairly
hammered gaming table
which is
in there. And
you can buy a gaming table from them if you're looking for an RPG table.
I mean, I will say every time we see them, we kind of drool over it, but they would not necessarily work for what we need.
They're not. They're
lovely
much
for
deeper
RPGs.
than a standard, and I think you can make them less deep if you want it for a board game. Okay, so it's worth checking out.
Okay. Our next game table, I guess.
Maybe. We'll see. But the rest of this place was very much like.
It was an impressive museum for such a.
They claimed old storefronts from buildings, and they were in like the actual storefronts and actual building fronts from buildings that had gotten torn down.
There was very little that was replicated to look old. It was
like the real legit piece, and it was well taken care of. Like.
Oh my gosh, the place.
We just as an example, we just got back from the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, and everything was coated in dust, and it was when was the last time somebody worked on this exhibit kind of thing, a little bit. It was like still really cool museum to go see.
Yeah.
But like this place, everything was immaculate, and there were people wandering around that were happy.
The docents there, they were there because they just clearly had a passion for what they were talking about.
Exactly.
And they each kind of had, I think, their own area where they were really, this was stuff that they really knew. Like there was a car there that I was just like, oh my gosh, this old car has been maintained so well.
Apparently, the owner's got 3 of them, and they swap them out because he doesn't have enough room to store them at his house.
Right, and I would never have known that if the docent hadn't been there and started talking about it. When he saw that I had some interest in this vehicle, and instead of some museums you go and you stand there and you read and read and read. This is like kind of an interactive with the docents there. I mean, it's
you
amazing.
can walk into the exhibits a lot too,
Yes.
so you can get much closer. Like obviously they're expecting you to be respectful, and the docents are kind of monitoring things to an extent, but you're able to interact with things and really get a much closer look at all of this history here than you would be able to get at any traditional big museum.
Yeah, and because when I don't know how busy it is in the middle of summer, but when we were there was a good number of people, families, adults, all different ages.
Other gamers.
All the gamers, yeah. There were a couple gamers that were also from Gary Con that I felt like we were following them around unintentionally to all the stops. But it was a lovely experience and well worth the price of admission in there. And then there's then they have the gift shop, which had some fun things in it. We picked up a couple items and ornaments and stuff, and they had a puzzle, which I was very tempted to get, a puzzle that was one of the stained glass D&Ds that they had, and some kind of unique-ish D&D. You can't get them anywhere but Lake Geneva because they commissioned it.
It's the only museum where I've been able to go buy an adventure module for D&D yet.
That's true.
Which is kind of cool. So I did.
Yeah. So that was that was a really fun little stop, and it's a great thing. If you're going, let's say you have your family there, and some are into D&D and some aren't. That museum and also Lake Geneva overall is one that you can kind of get your D&D history as well as do whatever else interests other people.
There was a lot of really cool as far as the Dungeons and Dragons history, and this is where I didn't shoot a lot of pictures. Was of the D&D part of the museum history, but there were a lot of it was just all of these older modules and older editions of the D&D game, and I'm sitting there the whole time going, ooh, I had this, I had this, I had this, I had this.
It was very much a lot of nostalgia.
Oh, I always wanted this.
Yeah.
Never was able to get my hands on it. Those kind of things. So.
Yeah. So that's definitely it's a neat museum. So then we got through the museum.
We went and got lunch and went to the pub and had a little local brewery and had some beers.
Yeah, tried out a couple, and I found a new cheese from Umlands, which I didn't know Umlands existed, but it's almost like a freeze-dried cheese.
Yeah, yep.
I have a new favorite snack that fits into my plans and stuff, so.
Anyways, after that, we ended up going to, it's not a day in
it's
Lake
not a
Geneva
date for us,
or a date for us if we don't go to a game store. So we went to the game store in Lake Geneva.
Yeah.
And
that was a blast.
Yeah, no, it was really well stocked.
Yeah.
Very good board game selection. Nice little RPG
knowledgeable
selection.
Staff in there.
Knowledgeable staff. They were very friendly, very engaging the second you walked in the door.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was.
Storefront's not horribly big from a merchandise area, but the amount of stuff they have stocked in there.
I found a game that I had heard about a couple years ago, I think, or had been watching it and just never really saw it come out anywhere here and forgot about it. So
well, and that's the
cool.
When you go to some of the if you can find some of these more out of the way game stores that are where the owners are interested in keeping things well stocked with current products, oftentimes you can find hidden treasures that are very hard to find or maybe impossible to get,
right?
Because they just their local buyers bought what they got, and then nobody else decided to buy it after that point. And so it's just been sitting there for 6 months, a year, 2 years. So who knows how long the game had been sitting there from when it was originally released?
Yeah, but I don't know if it's a good game or not. I was just Steam Park. Ooh, I heard of this. I want to play this. I'm gonna buy it. What did you buy?
Oh, I bought a bunch of paint.
Yeah,
they were getting rid of their Reaper paint line products in exchange for a different paint line. So they had
You got a bunch of
budget bags of like multiple colors, and so I got a couple of bags of paints, and you got.
I got a new dice tower. This one's got an LED. It's another acrylic dice tower.
Yep.
And it's got an LED in it. I need to put it together. And then I'll...
Yep, you need to get it all put together, whatever.
But
then
I do like my dice
towers. Stay tuned for our shorts. I'm sure there'll be an ASMR short with this dice tower featured soon.
Yeah, so, I mean, it probably won't fit into this room for display a lot, but, you know.
We'll see.
It's pretty cool. I had to keep my hands in my pockets there because I kept wanting to add more to my stack. There was some cool things. There's one that was not for sale, the miniature figure there, but I did make it a build one last night of it for you. It's right here. It's the Invisible Man.
Oh. There was also off the game room. There's like the hidden like secret door.
Yes.
That then got you off the retail space and got you into one of their two gaming spaces, and the gaming spaces are very nice.
Yeah, the lighting was great.
Tables were good, lighting was good, decor was great.
Oh yeah.
We didn't sit in the chairs, but while we're talking about this, you're probably seeing it on screen because I did shoot quite a bit of video of the one room. But yeah, it was really cool. I took some pictures
of the other room. There's a whole bunch of busts. Like we have our Slither, our David Lee pancake mount, and they had some other ones that they have that weren't they were from a different artist and everything. So it's kind of cool to see the other dragon busts up there.
Yeah. So overall, a really impressive little store. Really glad we got a chance to stop by and see it. And if you're in Lake Geneva and you're seeing all the Dungeons and Dragons sites, we definitely recommend that as one to kind of maybe cap off your day and maybe even get a chance to stay there for a little bit and play a game.
Yeah. So in the middle of that, when we were driving around Lake Geneva, we did not go in it because you can't just pull up and go in it. We did see.
We did see Gary's house. So we did go by and make sure we did
the touristy thing of taking a picture and we're sitting from our car.
Yep.
Across the street.
I know a lot of people that actually got to go like on a tour of the house or whatever. I was fine. Like it's an old house and it's not a huge house by any means. So for me, I didn't feel the need to go in. It
looked like a very typical Wisconsin house built in that time period, which growing up in Wisconsin, we both have been in.
We didn't take the time. One thing we didn't go to see is we didn't take the time to go see any of the TSR offices, either the building
we drove past the one.
I think we drove past it, but we didn't really take any pictures or really note it that it was the old TSR offices.
I believe I was driving, so I probably should not have been taking pictures.
So those are a couple other but it is worth mentioning there are a couple other places that are definitely kind of that Dungeons and Dragons history, that gaming history that you can go and see.
One other thing about gaming history, gotta go back. We gotta rewind back to the museum.
Okay.
Because there was the docent there that was like the greeter and got us started, and she was telling us her experiences with D&D. Which, from a game perspective, she was like, I don't really care. But her experiences, and there was a couple other people I heard here and there talk about their experiences of actually interacting with Gary on a day-to-day. Like, she would take her shoes down to his house to have them fixed or something.
Something like that,
She just, it was just a normal thing that they went. So, I guess, the point being, if you talk to people in Lake Geneva that are living there for a while, you're gonna get all these other little tidbits.
Especially the older people that were there when Gary was there. Yeah, you can get some really cool, interesting stories about what life was like, not just from a gaming perspective, because a lot of people that are in Lake Geneva, just because this was the birthplace of Dungeons and Dragons, be surprised. Like most people in Lake Geneva aren't gamers. They didn't play D&D. They didn't play D&D with Gary. They knew this thing was big, right? I mean, they obviously understood it's a small town, and then all of a sudden, here's a guy who's going and making stuff that's showing up on Saturday morning cartoons, and he's talking to people in Hollywood, and it was a big deal for the small town during the boom and 70s and 80s of Dungeons and Dragons, but it wasn't like everybody in the town played. It was a very niche thing back then.
Yeah. You know, I do kind of feel like we should have taken some pictures at the museum with these amazing docents, though.
Probably.
I'm not great about asking other people I'm with to like be like, hey, take a picture with me. You don't know me.
Yeah, and I will, and just kind of to cap it off too, like cycling back to things, Gary Con itself, there are so many people there from celebrities. I know Paul White, the Big Show from wrestling, was there this year. Joe Manganiello was there. I know I'm butchering that last name, but he was there. I saw him in pictures, and there was another guy, another celebrity was there.
And they're not there like to like be a celebrity up on stage.
They're there to experience the convention. Right? Yeah, they're there to experience the convention,
just like everyone else.
Like, be respectful of them. Like they're just trying to have a good time and play games too, but at the same time, like, there are opportunities for signings with celebrity signings that they have.
See, I'd probably be sitting there with them and not realizing who they were until someone pointed out after
other
the fact.
people. Yeah, for me too, a lot. But there were other people like Ed Greenwood and Margaret Wise from the Dungeons and Dragons fame. Like, if they were walking around the halls or something like that, people were, it was not a big. You saw people, like, if they were sitting there chatting with somebody in a hallway or something like that. And it didn't look like they were trying to get somewhere, or if they were playing a game somewhere, you could easily stop and talk to them for a bit, get a picture with them, that kind of thing. They were super cool about that, and it's not like it's a huge convention, so it's very easy, or fairly easy anyways, to run into a lot of these people.
Well, and this is I'm assuming like other conventions where you're not behind a gated door or whatever. Like, you're in like rooms and people can like walk in the room, look around, walk out if they need to. They're trying to figure out where they're supposed to go. Or do you have to have a ticket to get into?
No, it depends. It depends on the room. Most of the rooms, no, that's not the case. The vendor hall you had to show your badge to get in the vendor hall.
I guess I meant, like, if I have a badge and I'm walking around,
no, there's nothing,
and I'm between sessions,
nobody stopped you from getting into any room.
Okay,
other than some private rooms. There were a few private games that are like premium games that people had to pay for. Yeah. Those you would not have been allowed in. But everything else, like all the main gaming areas, the vendor hall, all of that, you were, as long as you had a badge, you were able to get in. A lot of times, a lot of these rooms were. Nobody was checking badges going in. Just the game masters that were at tables were checking badges to make sure that you had a badge so that you could play the game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like I'm assuming that whole resort was just basically overrun. And if you were there and weren't part of Gary Con,
well, that's the thing is, like, it's still a resort. It's still a functioning resort. So all of the public spaces in the resort, all the hallways. There were game tables up and down the hallways, all over the place. But you could literally have been there without a badge. Well, I don't know why somebody would have tried to get a reservation.
Spa?
Well, the spa, I think, was closed.
Oh.
I don't know that the spa was open because the spa parking was entirely booked for the GMs.
Oh, gosh.
So I don't know that anybody outside of Gary Con
would have been open, because then you could game. And then you could go and have a massage and then go back and
I don't know. Maybe it was open, but I don't know that it was.
All right.
I honestly don't, because the parking for it was not available.
Year.
All right. Anyways, I think my cup is out of coffee. We've been yapping for a long time. I think it's time. I think it's time to wrap things up. So make sure you let us know what you're drinking in the comments below. And if you've been to Gary Con or Lake Geneva, we'd love to hear what places and things you saw that were awesome and we may have missed. Just let us know in the comments below. Until next time, more board game content will be on our next episode. We promise. Talk to you next time. Bye. Thanks so much for watching.
And don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to our channel.
By the way, here's some other videos that we've done that we think you might be interested in. Till next time. Keep rolling those dice.